Hello, this is Mr. Schmidt, and today we're going to be learning how to use Adobe Illustrator to create a basic illustration. We will be learning how to use the pen tool, how to use the selection tool, how to duplicate objects, how to control the stroke and fill of an object, that's the color and the outline, how to use the shape builder to combine and subtract shapes from each other. So when we finish this tutorial, we'll end up with a nice, scary, spooky bat as we use these tools. So let's dive in and open up a new document. So I'm in Illustrator here. I'm going to go to File, New. And it really doesn't matter what size we use for this. I'm just going to go to Print and then hit Letter, which is your standard letter size piece of paper that you would have on a printer. But it really doesn't matter the size. That's the great thing about Illustrator. The things that we create are vector files, which means that we can resize them into any size we want and the quality would still look fantastic. So I selected Print and then Letter, and I'm going to hit Create. So I have a new blank canvas here, and I'm using the window layout called Essentials Classic. So that your interface looks like mine does, you will need to go to Window, Workspace, and then switch to Essentials Classic. The workspace just controls how many different tools you see, how your panels are lined up, and if you want to look your interface to look like mine, you'll want to switch over to Essentials Classic. So over here we have the toolbar, and in Essentials Classic we have two columns of tools where we can see all of our tools here. Down here we have our fill and our stroke. We have some other controls, and then on the right hand side of the screen we have our panels, and there are different options that we can find under different panels. And then across the top here we have our tool options. So whatever tool we have selected, this will change and allow us to change those options. So we are going to start by making this bat by making the basic shape of the body, which to start is a triangle. And to build a triangle, if you come over here, you'll see there's a bunch of different tools. There's one tool called the Shape tool. And if you look close on any tool that has a little shaded in triangle in the bottom right hand corner, that means if I click and hold on it, I'll get this fly out menu. And in that fly out menu, I'll have different choices. So under the Shape tool, I have the rectangle tool, a rounded rectangle tool, ellipse, polygon, star, flare, but none of them are really triangle. So to draw my triangle, I'm going to use the pen tool. So I'm going to click on the pen tool here. So I've selected the pen tool. And now the pen tool works by allowing me to set points around the shape. So to make my triangle, I'm going to click once with my mouse to start. And then you see once I've clicked, I get to draw the next spot. I'm going to click just one time at the top here to make the top of my triangle. And then I stop clicking. And then I'm going to come down here. And you'll see as I come over, I get these little pink lines. Those pink lines are what are called smart guides. Smart guides help us to see that things are lined up. And I want this bottom point to be lined up with my left point of the triangle. So I'm going to get that smart guide to show up, which tells me that I'm aligned to the other side. So I'll click one time. I'm not clicking and dragging on the corner. If I click and drag on a corner, I get kind of a curve shape. We don't want that. We'll be using that later, but for right now, we just want sharp corners. If you make any mistake, you can undo. And to undo, you can hit Command Z on your keyboard, and that'll bring you back. And we're going to come all the way back around by clicking on our starting point to close off our triangle. So there's my triangle. Now, did you see how I had those smart guides? If those smart guides aren't showing up for you, you want to go to View and make sure there's a check mark next to smart guides. All right. You might also have these snaps on, and those are helpful sometimes. For this tutorial, we want those off. So we want the smart guides on, but we don't want any check marks next to the snaps. Okay, that'll help us get things lined up just the way we want. So now I have my triangle, and I need to change this. Right now, it's got a white color on the inside and a black stroke or outline on it. And I want to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change to the Selection tool. The Selection tool is over here on the top left of my toolbar. But if I hover over it, you'll see that in parentheses there's a letter next to it. And that's the keyboard shortcut. that means that if I hit the letter V on my keyboard, it'll switch over to the selection tool. So I could click on it and switch this way, or I could hit the letter V on my keyboard and switch to the tool. The tools that we use all the time, which the tools I'm going to be teaching you today, are worth knowing the keyboard shortcut to, because we'll be flipping back and forth between them often. So I suggest learning that the selection tool is letter V and the pen tool is letter P. So let's try flipping back and forth between those. So if I hit the letter V, I'm on the selection tool. If I hit the letter P, I'm back to the pen tool. We want to be using the selection tool for this next step. So I hit the letter V to flip back to it. Now what I want to do is I want to duplicate my triangle. And there's a couple ways to do this. You could select a triangle and hit copy and paste. That's one way to do it. But another way to do it, and since we duplicate things all the time, it's worth learning the shortest way to do things. If I hold down Option on my keyboard or Alt on a PC, I'll see that my cursor changes into these two pointers. And now while I'm holding down Option on my keyboard, I'm not letting go of it. If I click and drag, you'll see I get a second one. And those smart guides are coming up as well. So I can see I want to drag this triangle over so that my second triangle is going to intersect in the bottom left-hand corner. We can see those two spots are joining each other. And let go. And now I've got two triangles. Okay? So I've got my two triangles. You know what? Actually, I want to change the fill and stroke on these. So I'm going to select both triangles. To select both things, you click on one with the selection tool, hold down Shift on the keyboard, and while holding down Shift, I'm going to click on the other triangle. So I have them both selected. And then over here, I'm going to change my fill and my stroke. So right now I have a white fill and a black stroke. This little thing right here will flip the two and say, you know what, take the color from the stroke and make it the fill, and make the fill color the stroke. And that's kind of what I want to do. So I'm going to hit the flip here on those, and now you'll see that it turned to black. But it also shows me that I have a white stroke. Now I don't want there to be any stroke at all. So to change that, I'm going to click on the stroke, and then down at the bottom here, I can change that to none. In Illustrator, anytime you see a white square with a red slash through it, that means nothing, no color at all. And for this case, we don't want any color there at all. So I'm going to hit the none. All right, so now I've got the start of my shape. Let's take a look back at our bat and see what the next part is. So the next part is kind of the head and the main body here. So we're going to draw a shape that's going to give us that kind of nice curved top to the head. So let's grab the pen tool for that. So let's see if you remember, how do I switch quickly to the pen tool? If you said the letter P on the keyboard, you were right. So I'm going to hit the letter P on the keyboard. I could click over there, but that's a lot slower than just hitting the letter P. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to zoom in a little closer so I can see things. You can zoom in by going to View, and then Zoom in. And then also on our menus, we see here there's a keyboard shortcuts. So zooming in is Command and plus, and zooming out is Command and minus. And we zoom in and out a lot, so it's worth learning that one as well. So I'm going to zoom in using Command and plus. And if I need to kind of move around what I'm looking at, I can click on the hand tool here, which is the letter H, hit the hand tool, and I can kind of drag this right into place. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close so we can see here. I'm going to flip over to the pen tool with the letter P, and I'm going to draw the curved part to the head. So I'm going to start over here overlapping my other shape. And I'm going to come over to this side here, right at the top of where the head is going to be. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag so I kind of get a nice curve. And you can see how I can control how curvy it is by clicking and dragging out. So that's about the curve I want here. And I'm going to come back over here to this side. And I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom because I want to fill in this whole area here. So, and if I take my mouse and bring it over, it will kind of align to the bottom of my triangle, which is great. I'm going to come back over here, click on this side as well. And then I'm going to typically with the pen tool, I want to finish my shape. So I'm going to come back around to where I started, and you can see I'm finishing the shape because I get a little circle, a little donut shape in the bottom right-hand corner of my pen tool. And now I've closed off my shape. So I have the basic part of the head there. So right now I'm going to flip over to my selection tool, which is V on the keyboard, and I can see I have three different shapes. I have this shape, I've got this kind of body shape, and I've got this shape here. And what I want to do is I want to merge these shapes all together so that instead of them being three separate shapes, it's one kind of big shape. So to do that, I'm going to grab my shape builder tool. Before I use the shape builder tool, I'm going to select the shapes that I'm going to be working with. So to do that, I'm going to select these three shapes. Now I could hold down Shift and click on them. Or if I had none of them selected, I could click and drag a box that's going to get them all. Or I could hit Command A on my keyboard if I want to select everything on my canvas. However you want to select them all, it's up to you. We're just going to select all three of the shapes, grab the shape builder tool, and now that I have the shape builder tool, you'll see that the areas kind of get shaded. So by default, it's adding shapes together. You can see I've got the little plus sign in the bottom corner. So if I click on this shape here and drag over, it's going to add that to it. And if I drag over here, it's going to add this to it. If I let go, you'll see that those are now, this is all one shape. And this is a separate shape, and this is a separate shape. So I want to add these all together. So I'm going to click from here, cross over to here, cross over to here. And now this is one shape. Fantastic. So I'm going to hit the V tool. Got my item selected, and you know what? Let's look back at our bat. Looks like we need to add some ears to our bat here. So I'm going to grab the pen tool, P on the keyboard, and I'm going to start overlapping. I'm going to come up. I want a nice crisp corner for the ear, like right about here. So I'm going to click, come over, come about here, come up. And I could even, oh, that smart guide is so handy. It tells me that that's the same height as the other one. I'm going to come down and come all around. And you know what? Let's merge this into the, you know what? Actually, look at this. This ear is a little skinny compared to the other ear. So let's use a different tool to change the shape after we make it. To do that, I'm going to switch over to the direct selection tool. The direct selection tool lets us click on any of these little corners, these anchors, and change where those anchors are. So if I click on this anchor here, I can click and drag on it, and I can move just that anchor, not the entire shape, over. So let's say I want to bring that over to here. And the same thing with this corner. If I click on just the anchor, I can drag that anchor over and get it just the way I want. And those smart guides help me out. This is aligned to the other ear, and then that other guide is telling me that it's going to be perfectly vertical. 90 degrees up, so that's perfect. That looks a lot better. So I'm going to switch over to my selection tool, and I want to merge this shape into this shape. So let's see if you remember, how would I merge the shapes? How did I show you how to merge the shapes together? That's right, we're going to use the shape builder tool. And before we use the shape builder tool, we select the items that we're going to be working with. So I want to select this shape as well as the other shape that we created. Come over to the shape builder tool, and I can start clicking and dragging to combine those shapes together. So I want to add this to it, this here. I'm just holding down the mouse while I drag, and all those together, I want that just to be one shape. So now I have one shape that's that there. It's perfect. All right, let's see, what do we want to do next? Let's come in here and make the mouth. All right, so to use the mouth, what does that sort of look like? It kind of looks like the curve that we made over here. So this is going to be a shape that we draw with the pen tool. So I'm going to switch over the pen tool with the letter P. Yep. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start my mouth. I'm going to come up to the top of my curve, click and drag to kind of get my curve the way I want it to look. Come over here, come down, come up. I can even use the smart guide if I want to kind of get things aligned. I'll change the curve, come over here, and then back around to close off where I get that donut shape. Now I just made that shape. I'm going to flip over to the selection tool to select it, and I want to change the color of this. So let's see, what did we make it here before? We made it like, kind of like a red-orange. So to change that color, I'm going to click on my fill. If I double click on it, it'll bring up the color picker. And in the color picker, I can move the slider and then click anywhere here to kind of see what it's going to look like. So I'm going to come down here and get a nice orange color. Maybe a little brighter. Something like that. Look at that. There's my orange. And now I've got the mouth. Now I don't want to merge this shape into the rest of my body. If I did, it would lose the color. It wouldn't be separate any longer. So I'm just going to leave that the way it is. The next thing I'm going to make is the eyes. So the eyes are two circles. So to make the eyes, I'm going to come over here. And remember that little colored in triangle in the bottom right? That means if I click and hold, I'll get to other tools. And the ellipse is what's going to get my eyes here. So I've grabbed the ellipse tool, and then I'm going to come over here and draw a circle. Now when I click and drag with the ellipse tool, I can make any kind of oval I want. If I hold down, while I'm clicking and dragging, if I hold down the shift key, I'll get a perfect circle. In this case, we want a perfect circle for the eyes. So I'm going to hold down the shift key while I drag to get a perfect circle. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to change the color of this. I know I want that to be like a green color, so I'll come up over here, pick out a nice green color. There we go. I can flip to the selection tool with the letter V to move my eye around where I'd like it to go. And I'm going to duplicate that eye. Let's see if you remember using the selection tool. How do I duplicate an object? Let's see if you can think about it. If you said hold down the Option key on your keyboard if you're on a Mac, or Alt on the PC, that's when we get those two arrows. Now I can click and drag those two arrows across and get that just where I want it to go. Look at that. Perfect. All right. So we got our two eyes. Those are fantastic. Now we need some pupils. So you know what I'm going to do to make the pupils is I'm going to duplicate the eye here. Just bring it over here so it's overlapping. And I'm going to change the color. The pupils are going to be in black. And I'm going to bring the size down by using the transform tool. So if I take my mouse over to the corner, you'll see here it allows me to rescale the size of my object. So I'm going to come here, and I want to keep this a perfect circle. So in Illustrator, anytime I want to keep something perfect, I hold down Shift. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I do that, and it's going to keep it as a perfect circle. And I can kind of get this to about the size that I want. I can switch over to the move to the selection tool and move it into place. And I'm going to make a copy of the pupil. To make a copy of the pupil, I hold down Option or Alt on my keyboard and drag it over. There we go. Got some eyes. All right. So let's see what's the next thing we need to do here. Let's do the teeth. So the teeth is just a line. So to do the line, I'm going to grab the line tool, which is right here, the line segment tool. And I'm going to click once to start my line segment and bring it down. And you'll see when I did that, it made a line, but my line right now has no fill and no stroke. And I want it to have a stroke. So I'm going to click on the stroke here and set it to be a color. And I have the color there. And you know what? I want this to be thicker. So to change the stroke thickness, I can do this a couple places. I'm going to do it up here at the top in the options for this. It's also over here in the properties panel. But I'm going to change the stroke weight. Right now it's set to 1 point, and I'm going to make that a little thicker. All right. So I'm going to do that there. The other thing I want to do with my stroke is I want to change the way the stroke ends. Right now it's kind of flat, and I don't like the way it looks being flat. I want it to be rounded on the end there. So to do that, I'm going to change the way the stroke looks. To get to that, I'm going to go to my stroke panel. So this icon over here, these three lines, that's how we open up our stroke panel. And here, you might have to come over to these three lines to show the options. So I want to see all the options. So I'm going to come to the three lines and hit Show Options. And now I have full control over the way my line looks. It's always great to explore and see what's possible in here. So if I look through here, I can see like, I can change the ends and the corners and how they look. Looks like here I could change my stroke into be a dotted line, a dashed line if I like. I could even make this into an arrow by pulling down here and changing these options. It's good to know. For this bat, we don't need arrows or anything like that. But what we want to do is we want to change the cap from being a butt cap where it's flat. We want to change it to be a round cap. And now if I look at my line, I can see that I've got a better looking tooth there. So I'm done with this panel. I can put that back away by clicking those arrows there. And I am going to make a copy of this. So I'm going to change over to the selection tool, hold down Option or Alt on my keyboard, drag it over. And you know what? I want to flip this so it's looking the other way. To do that, I'm going to come over here to my properties and click the flip along horizontal axis button. That's going to flip it so it's the other side, and now I can take my selection tool and kind of move it into place wherever I like it to be. Perfect. Looking good. All right, the next thing I need to do is I need to add the fingers up at the top here. So to do that, I'm going to use the pen tool. So I'm going to switch over to the pen tool. And those hands are going to go up here. There's not a lot of room up here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Remember, what's the shortcut to zoom out? Command minus. hit Command minus and give myself a little bit of room. And remember, I could use the hand tool, which is over here, to kind of move around and get things where I want to be. So it's always good to use the zoom in and out, get exactly where you feel comfortable, because you want to have space to be able to do what you need to do. Now with the pen tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start overlapping with my shape, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull. So I'm going to click and drag to get the start of my finger there. And you'll see it's using the stroke options that we used just before. So it's a pretty thick hand here. To finish drawing with the pen tool, to stop, I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard. ESC on the keyboard, escape. That's going to end that there. And now, I could come over here and say, you know what, the stroke is a little thick. Let's bring it down a little bit. And let's use the selection tool to kind of move it over and get it to look where we want it to go. That looks good. I'm going to use the pen tool again. So I flip to the pen tool with the letter P, and I'm going to draw the next finger. 2, hit escape to end. Do it again, P, hit escape to end, and one more time. Escape to end. Now I can come over here and do the same thing on the other hand. Click to start, come up and over. If I don't like it, I can switch to the V tool and kind of move it into place, the selection tool to move it. I'm going to flip over to the pen tool with P. Draw it, hit escape to stop drawing that finger. Come back over here, start again. 3. And then hit the pen tool again to draw my last finger. Hit escape to stop. So you know what I noticed over here on this hand, I don't love the way that finger's coming across. So I could use the V tool to select this and kind of move it into place wherever I want it to go. When you move things, you want to click right on the line of the item. So I can kind of get in here and grab it, something like that. Looking good. Oh, I only have 3 fingers over here. Let's add one more. So P for the pen tool. Click and drag to draw the next finger, then hit escape to stop. Looking good. All right, let's look back over here at what we're trying to get here. So I need to do some nasty eyebrows here. So to do that, I can kind of see I'm just going to draw like a triangle. So I've got my pen tool. I'm going to come over here to start it. Click once, click again, and click over, and finish off my shape. I have it selected, and I need to change this so it has a black infill and no stroke. So I can see if I flip these two, that would do it. So I'm going to use that little key, this little icon here to flip the two. That's perfect. I'm just going to make a copy of this over to the other side. To make a copy with the selection tool, I hold down Alt or Option on the keyboard. Click and drag it over. I need this flipped. Let's see if you can remember. How do I flip an object? That's right. Over here in the properties, I click the flip along horizontal axis and then drag it into place. Get it right where you want it to go. Looking good. Oh, I need that over a little bit. Very good. All right. So now I can see the last thing I need to do is add the jagged edge to that. So let's see. Think about which tool would you use to make this jagged edge? If you said the pen tool, you are correct. And we flip over to the pen tool by using the letter P on the keyboard. I'm going to start by overlapping. It's always a good idea to overlap your objects when you start with them. So I'm going to come over here to start. I want to start right here at the corner. And I'm just going to click. I don't want curves, so I'm not dragging on my clicking. I'm just going to kind of click down, click down. And when you do this, you might see the shape looks kind of funky as you draw it. That's totally fine. It doesn't matter as long as you know you're putting them in the right spots. Because when you close off your shape, that's when you're going to get the final shape. What it's trying to do is show you if you stopped right there what it would look like. It draws a straight line from where you are to your starting point. But we're going to come around and finish it off good. So I click over here, kind of click to this, back up here, and I'm going to, nice big overlapping and bring that around. Remember, I close it off. I know I'm closing it off when I get that donut shape there. So I'm going to use the V tool here, and I've got my shape. here. Now if I look, I have this as one shape and my tail is a separate shape. So I could add those together. I could hold down shift to select them both, and then how do I add shapes together? By using the shape builder tool, I could click and drag and get these shapes together, and that'll make that all one shape. Just like that, which is perfect. So I've added those all together. I have my bat looking great. The last thing I need to do is save it. So I'm going to go to File, Save here. And when I go to Save, I can choose where I want to put my things. It's a great idea to make a folder on your computer. I like to save things in my documents. So go over here to Documents, create a new folder, give it a name, and save your work in there. By default, it saves things as an Illustrator file, which is great. That means that you can edit this and change it up however you like. You can also, after you save something, you can export them as different files. So if I wanted to put this on the internet, I might save it as a JPEG, or if I wanted to use it on the laser cutter, I might save it as a different file format. But the base format that you always want to save is just an Illustrator file, which is AI. So congratulations, you made an awesome looking bat while learning a lot of the standard tools. Using these tools in Illustrator, you could build just about anything that you can think of. In fact, let me show you an example here. If I go over here, I'll zoom in, use that hand tool. But you can see this is another monster that I made using all those basic tools. You could probably look at this and pick out what tools did I use. So for the triangle, well, we used the pen tool. Perfect circles was the ellipse tool. Here I used the pen tool, varying the stroke width. Here, well, this is a circle with the top cut off. So using the shape builder, you probably think about how I did that. And the hair, well, that's two overlapping ovals. So using the shape builder, I could have made that too. So that character all there made by basic shapes. Down here, you can see how these came together. Pen tool for the horns, perfect circles for the body, pen tool for the arms and legs, and for the tail, and perfect circles for the feet. And here, see again how I made this. Perfect circle for the head, shape builder tool to get the mouth shape, or the pen tool for the teeth, ellipses for the eyes, pen tool for the fur, triangle with the pen tool, and then the arms made one with the pen tool and then duplicated it and moved it into place. So by using these basic tools, you can build just about anything you like.